Anji, hello. Assalamu alaikum. I would like to thank Professor Tafazzul Haq, Dr. Aflaq, the organizing committee of RumaCon 2, and Sheikh Zayed Postgraduate Medical Institute for giving me this opportunity to present at their conference. I will talk about juvenile idiopathic arthritis or JIA, how to recognize it early, and what are the challenges associated with it. I hope at the end of this activity, most of you would be able to discuss it, how to approach a child with musculoskeletal pain or joint pains, and to understand that not all joint pains is arthritis, and not every child with arthritis has JI. Also, how to recognize the diagnostic clues of the different arthropathies, how to develop a strategy for early diagnosis of JIA, and to recognize the peculiar challenges associated with JIA. We know that musculoskeletal pain is common during childhood. In population surveys, up to 16% of school-age children are reported to have some kind of limb pain. Joint pain has multiple etiologies, and this is not always inflammatory. However, it is imperative to recognize an inflammatory etiology like juvenile idiopathic arthritis, as early diagnosis and treatment is critical to prevent its complications. When a child presents with musculoskeletal pain, we know that a complete history and thorough physical examination must be done to look at any obvious etiology of the symptom like trauma, to see whether there is normal activity and physical examination, or has the symptom affected both, whether there are any constitutional systemic complaints associated, and is there any abnormality in physical examination or any change in the child's activity. Abnormalities in physical examination to look for would be redness, swelling, or pain on movement, whether there is any decrease in mobility or increase in mobility of the joint or range of motion, whether there's any rash associated. If there are any constitutional complaints, then we must think about serious conditions like underlying malignancy, infections, or connective tissue diseases like lupus. Does the change in activity have any impact on the decrease in range of motion or on the symptoms or on the stiffness of the child? If there is no change with any activity and it is a persistent pain, then malignancy or other serious conditions should be ruled out. When we look at any child, of course, you need to make sure, or any other patient, any older patient as well, you want to make sure you're not missing any serious underlying life-threatening condition. So if there is a nocturnal pain that is not relieved by simple analgesics, if the pain is associated with fever, malaise, if there is pain that is more in the morning, or it is relieved by activity, this implies a serious condition. On examination, if there is objective joint swelling with stiffness in the joint, if there is any localized bony tenderness, if there is weakness associated with the joint symptoms, and if the symptoms have impacted the growth of the child or caused any weight loss, we have to think this is something serious. On examination and history, a pointer is given, but sometimes it is also the labs that come back that make us think that something is going on. So any raised ESR, if there is any abnormality in the complete blood count. On radiology, if you see any soft tissue swelling, if there is any osteopenia, periosteal elevation, or cortical destruction, these are all pointers to serious conditions. I'm going to just run through several scenarios to give a practical demonstration of how we can actually go through this algorithm and come to a diagnosis. So if you have a single painful joint, here is an 8-year-old girl who was fit and well and developed knee pain, and she had a limp. On examination, there was left hip tenderness and restriction in the range of motion. She was diagnosed as GIA and started treatment with sulfasalazine. However, when you look closely, you can see that the Levine line is not passing through the head of the femur on the left side. So this is actually a slipped upper femoral epiphysis SUF, and it is an orthopedic condition. Referral to an orthopedic immediately is needed. Another 9-year-old girl with gradual progressive swelling of left knee and recent onset limp. Her exam was normal except for a left swollen knee with a high SED rate. An X-ray suggested soft tissue swelling, and MRI was done which showed proliferative synovitis with some effusion. Arthroscopy was done. There was a caseating granuloma. This was tuberculous arthritis. So you must remember infection must be ruled out in any case of monoarthritis. When you have a single joint involvement, let me reiterate, the things to remember acutely particularly is reactive arthritis. It could be post-streptococcal, it could be rheumatic fever, it could be post-genitourinary or a gut infection. We must rule out septic arthritis like TB or osteomyelitis. Of course, trauma. Sometimes ALL can present with a single joint involvement, and you need to rule out orthopedic conditions. Lastly, juvenile idiopathic arthritis may sometimes present with a single joint involvement, and it should be considered if symptoms do not resolve. What do you do with back pain in children? Mechanical back pain is very common, generally due to lack of fitness, because of the bag that children carry and weak abdominal muscles, tight hamstrings. Our children are not very active anymore. But remember, it is uncommon under the age of 10, rare under the age of 5. And if a child is complaining of back pain, you must look for a serious underlying pathology. Again, the red flags to look for would be fever, weight loss, bladder or bowel dysfunction, nocturnal pain, which is persistent, and associated weakness, numbness, and radiating pain. Here is an adolescent boy with a painless kyphosis with recent onset of discomfort in the kyphotic region. He was diagnosed as juvenile spondyloarthropathy and etanercept was suggested. However, he had normal sacroiliac joints, and on further examination and reflection, it turned out that he has Scheuermann's disease, which is an epiphysitis. So here we have a child with many swollen joints plus rash, a 6-year-old boy, sudden onset migratory arthritis involving different joints. 1 week later, he develops an urticarial rash. He has a high SED rate, some transaminitis, and a positive rheumatoid factor. So does that mean he has GIA? But we need to wait. We see that after 1 week, the rash and arthritis resolves. However, he develops jaundice. And this is hepatitis B associated arthritis. So as I said, infection-related arthritis must be ruled out in a monoarthritis, but also in an acute onset of polyarthritis, where several viruses and bacteria can cause this condition. And of course, if it is associated with a rash, things that you do rule out are things like bacterial endocarditis, as well as HSP, Henoch-Schönlein-Burggraf. Now we have a child with many swollen joints lasting more than 6 weeks with systemic features. This is a 5-year-old boy with fever, weight loss, and polyarthritis. On examination, he had generalized lymphadenopathy, high SED rate. He had pancytopenia and a low titer RA factor positive. So is it GI? Could this be systemic onset GI? Is there any diagnostic test you would like to do before you jump to this diagnosis? Yes, you must do either a lymph node biopsy or a bone marrow biopsy. And a biopsy done showed near total replacement of the marrow with leukemic cells. Please remember, GI is not associated with thrombocytopenia, with leukopenia, or extreme pain. And systemic onset GI actually has thrombocytosis and leukocytosis. And if you have extreme pain, malignancies, and infection, like osteomyelitis, must be ruled out. Another child with many swollen joints, lasting more than 6 weeks. And now we've caused all these causes and some more that we have not discussed have been excluded. So 8-year-old girl with a 2-year history of multiple swollen joints, morning stiffness, mild anemia, and occasional low-grade fever. She had been treated as rheumatic fever with monthly intramuscular penicillin. She was still miserable. As you can see, both the knees are swollen. Please remember, acute rheumatic fever does not cause chronic arthritis. So 6 months later, you see, she is completely resolved. Arthritis is gone. She's happy, smiling. What did we do? We just did a proper history and physical examination, diagnosed GI after excluding everything else. She was treated with a short course of steroids. She's off Fitna here in this picture and given methotrexate at optimum dose. So remember, there is no laboratory test to diagnose juvenile idiopathic arthritis. History and physical examination should help to decide about lab workup and not the reverse. but always, again, remember to rule out infections, immune-mediated conditions like lupus vasculitis, malignancy, and orthopedic conditions. What is GIA? It is a clinically heterogeneous group of disorders in lifelong disability, a reduced quality of life, particularly in systemic onset or polyarthritis, and or unsatisfactory response to treatment. The disease encompasses all forms of arthritis that begin before the age of 16 years, persist for more than 6 weeks, and are of briefly are oligoarticular, where 4 or fewer joints are involved. Most importantly, may be associated with positive ANA, and the main morbidity is asymptomatic anterior uveitis. Poly-GI is 5 or more involved joints. 10% of these kids may have a rheumatoid factor positive, and it behaves, this rheumatoid factor positive group of poly-GI behaves most like adult rheumatoid arthritis. Juvenile psoriatic arthritis, you can see the dactylitis, nail pitting, a psoriatic-like rash may be present, or a family history of psoriasis. Enthesitis-related GIA is part of the juvenile SPA, and you can see that there is an enthesitis seen on the left side of the Achilles tendon. This is diagnosed if you have arthritis plus enthesitis, or arthritis with either SI tenderness or inflammation at the SI joint. First degree relative with all of the following. Please remember that GIA acute anterior uveitis is associated with ERA, while asymptomatic chronic anterior uveitis is associated with more with oligoarticular. Then we have the systemic onset GI, where you have a high spiking quotidian pattern of fever with a rash that comes and goes, adenopathy, and may have serositis. Here is a young boy with high spiking fever who was ill during fever. And otherwise, as you can see on the right side, when he is afebrile, he's quite happy. He's otherwise well. Not there, and pan cultures were negative, a diagnosis of this. So how is GI different from RA? Please remember, younger either passively or actively, and clues to look for are limping, stiffness when they get up, reluctance to get out of bed in the morning. Remember, rheumatoid factor is positive only in 10% children. Joint destruction may occur later, and so X-rays are often normal initially, and you may need MRIs to show up with contrast to show up early synovial inflammation. Also, you cannot diagnose osteoporosis on T-scores. You need a pediatric software, and Z-scores are counted. And osteoporosis is diagnosed only in the presence of a low Z-score and clinical fractures. So what are the outcomes of GI? We see, which are different than what we see in, may be similar or different than in adults. Flexion deformities are seen very often. You may have bony overgrowth, resulting in limb length discrepancies and valgus deformities. Overall growth may be affected, and child may be small, particularly seen in systemic onset. You can see persistent disease in up to 70%, long-term disability in up to 40%, which is severe in 10% of children. And chronic uveitis, which can occur in up to 20% of patients due to asymptomatic iridocyclitis. Out of these, 40% of children can have cataracts and even blindness. Here is a 5-year-old child with asymptomatic cataract picked up due to difficulty of reading by a teacher in preschool. On active inquiry, there was a 1-year history of a single swollen joint. X-rays and blood tests, including rheumatoid factor, were negative. This was treated as minor trauma and forgotten. In present labs, ANA was detected, initially treated as lupus, but on detailed examination, 2 swollen joints were elicited and a rash was seen on extensor surface legs. She actually had psoriatic arthritis with dactylitis and chronic anterior uveitis. Please remember the highest risk for this is an early onset of disease. If it's a girl with an ANA positive, more often oligoarticular, or even seronegative polyarticular or psoriatic, with a disease evolution less than 4 years. And it must be picked up because it remains a leading cause of childhood blindness even in the developed world. Some other special issues seen in children, you can see a lot of iatrogenic cushions, temporomandibular joint involvement may have problems with and difficulty, and orthodontics may be needed when the child grows up. Cervical spine is an issue, and it must the examination must be done to elicit this restriction, because you may not see it unless you ask the child to make the neck movements. The hallmark of GI is posterior cervical fusion. Another special issue is the systemic subtype being associated with serious morbidity and mortality due to macrophage activation syndrome, in which you can see spontaneous bleeding, bruising, or shock, where hemoglobin platelet count and serum fibrinogen typically drop with rising ferritin, and bone marrow will show active phagocytosis by macrophages and histocytes. Another 3-year-old boy with fever for several weeks with anemia, but leukocytosis and thrombocytosis, and later developed polyarthritis. Unfortunately, developed pancytopenia, liver dysfunction, coagulopathy denoting DIC and hypotension, and sadly died due to intractable congestive heart failure. So remember that in GI outcomes, there is a 4 to 14-fold increase in mortality rate compared with general population, and the causes are cardiac issues, infections, and macrophage activation syndrome. So, unless and until we train ourselves, we cannot see. So we have the biggest issue is being able to know how to see children with juvenile arthritis, pick them up early and treat them early. We know that prognosis of GI needs aggressive early treatment, and adverse prognostic factors are the delay in diagnosis, delay in referral to specialist team, late disease control, and continued disease activity. The prognostic and high disease activity measures in all forms of GI, the poor prognostic and poor are arthritis of the hip or cervical spine, radiographic damage on presentation. If you have a physical global assessment of overall disease more than 7 out of 10, and if the ESR and CRP is twice the upper limit of normal. All of these have peculiar poor prognostic features, as I have listed over here. So, a treat to target approach seen in adult rheumatoid arthritis has also now being applied in children. We know that the window for early treatment in adult arthritis is best within months of disease onset, and delay in seeing a rheumatologist was associated with a hazard ratio of 1.87 for not achieving disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drug-free remission, plus a 1.3 times higher rate of joint destruction. So treat to target there has been applied, and there are advances in treatment, particularly in polyarticular GI, where targets have been defined for clinically inactive disease through a CRP ESR, physician global assessment, or parent global assessment, and the JEDAS, which is the juvenile equivalent of adult DAS, combining it with CHAC. These are the JADAS score set criteria, as well as the childhood health assessment questionnaire. So two particular studies I want to mention here are the TREAT GI, where it was seen that the odds of clinically inactive disease increased by 1.324 times for each month earlier treatment was started after onset of symptoms. And the QGI, where it was seen that methotrexate alone can achieve an ACR 75% in 50% of children if you start it early. So we know that all the suggested treatment pathways for GI have an anchor drug, methotrexate, as the base drug. And the challenges that are associated with cost of treatment makes this extremely important in our setting, where you can see that a per annum cost of methotrexate comes to just over $10, while biologics like Enbrel can cost more than $6,000. We have an average annual income of a Pakistani person as $1,500. So if we can manage to diagnose children early and start them on methotrexate, chronically inactive disease or disease remission. So the most important thing is that you have to step back and look again, to think and see, because unless and until you can look at the overall picture, you may miss the fact. You're just looking at all of these people who are looking at this elephant. If you're looking at the real thing, which is this elephant, and the same thing goes for children who have joint pains and arthralgias. I want to here just mention my mentors in pediatric rheumatology, Professor Nikhat Mir, with whom I saw my first JIA, Dr. Prudence Manners, with whom I was lucky enough to do the pediatric rheumatology um, certificate from University of Western Australia, to Professor Sarah Walker, through whom I was able to apply for the International Fellowship of ACP and go to University of Kansas and work with Dr. Carol Lindsley, the pediatric rheumatologist, and the great Professor Cassidy, who is actually the father of rheumatology in the US. My rheumatology team, our original team, Nikhat, Ahmed, and all of them, I just want to share with you. And my take home message would be that the greatest cost effective intervention is early diagnosis and treatment with conventional DMRs. Therefore, we need innovations in rheumatology training, in redistributing patient care to general physicians and allied health workers, for improved triage and early referral to rheumatologists. We need and patient awareness. We need innovations in cost-effective treatment by generating regional local data with patient cohorts, registries to develop local treatment guidelines based on what are our peculiar issues of financial constraints and the availability of drugs. The young lady for the first time presented to us at age 21 with completely deformed joints. It's so terrible and sad, just because she was not diagnosed in time. And another child who came to us within 6 months of onset of symptoms was treated, and as you can see, is fully functional now. Just briefly to introduce Arthritis Care Foundation, which I'm proud member and founding trustee, and some of the children that have been funded through ACF, and the card and some of the thanks that is given to us by these children. Thank you for your attention.